Thank you guys. Thank you so much, guys. Everybody out there watching us and just sharing our stories and always motivating us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you. May you keep doing that. Today we have an amazing segment, and we're gonna talk about something that really people dance around it a bit, but we're gonna talk about it today. It's mental health, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this segment is dedicated to men out there. Yes, man. Yes, I'm part of a group that within the Kenyan community that actually we call ourselves the Men Forum or Men Cave, and I hope this is going to help not only the Kenyans or Africans out there, especially the African heritage background. We really fear about talking about mental health, but today I saw it's very paramount and it's important that we talk about these issues. And we're joined by our amazing guest. I'll let him introduce himself because I don't want to butcher whatever he has done or what is his background. So I'll just introduce him and say, please feel welcome. Thank you so much
for
joining us here at Thekonecttv.
Thank you very much.
We actually are honored and privileged to have you. And just a brief introduction so that our people can know you. So what names do you go by and what is your background?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Weston. I'm a mental health professional, specialized in forensic mental health. For those who might not know what forensic mental health is all about, it's about people who have an offending background and have been found guilty by way of mental health impairment. But having said so, I've also have extensive background working in all sorts of fields in mental health, and all from acute settings. Acute settings is when somebody's really unwell. That's back in the UK, and also working in rehabilitation units where we help clients move forward and be able to live a meaningful life. So that's about me in a nutshell. I've been working across female units, male units, and I've recently just come over here in Australia and experiencing the healthcare system here in Australia.
Yeah. Amazing. Welcome so much, Weston. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us here at Thekonecttv. And just basically, we'll just start it off. Just the main basic introduction. What is mental health? Because sometimes you get confused between mental health and mental illness. So maybe just a nutshell. What is mental health?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question, really. And most people sort of like get a misunderstanding of what mental health is. Basically, to a degree, we all have some form of a mental health issue. To a degree, you can be walking along the streets, but to a degree, we all have some form of mental health issue. So basically, mental health is when your psychological or social circumstances are affecting the way you carry out your daily living, the way we think, the way we react to stresses in life. In a nutshell, that all encompasses our mental health. There are a lot of things that can be thrown at us. It can be very little things, but how we are able to deal with them, and that now differentiates whether you are suffering from a mental health or you have a mental health problem, or you're able to cope with life stresses. So it affects a lot of things.
Amazing. Yeah. And this is something that we really, as Africans, we don't really talk about it. And sometimes you might be feeling a type of way, but you don't really think, or you don't want to go to a doctor to actually find out. So maybe what are the early onsets? Maybe as we now get deeper and then talk about, maybe stereotypes and stigma. But before we get to that, what are some of maybe something that can help someone realize, okay, I'm falling into this trap, or I'm not falling into this trap. That's just a normal mental space, but I can bounce back. But how do you differentiate when it's actually getting worse?
We all get affected in different ways.
Yeah.
When you start noticing that your normal self your things that you enjoy doing, like lack of enjoyment. If you used to like watching football on TV and you can't even spend 5 minutes to watch that program, or you find yourself lacking sleep, or you find yourself oversleeping. Those are little things. You wonder why. I'm just feeling so tired every time. I'm just sitting here, but I can't even have a conversation with my partner or my kids or the usual people that I talk to. I'm not enjoying anything. Very little things. And we tend to ignore it and ignore it and ignore it until it's really affecting. You are now crippled. You can't do anything. You've got no enjoyment in life. You're just finding yourself isolated socially or psychologically. You've isolated yourself. So there are very little things that we don't pay attention to. And some of the times people then tend to maladaptive coping strategies to try and manage that mental health, like using drugs, like drinking, gambling, things like that. And they find something that they think is enjoyment, but in a way it's affecting their daily life. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. I like how you're catching the drift, because now I'm actually taking it a notch higher, going to men, because you find men really tend to like such, drinking, hanging out with friends, smoking, and do stuff like that. Do you reckon that that's a way that men actually shield and hide the fact that they are going through mental health? And now we are coming to discuss about men. Do you think that's one of the reasons why men, not all, but men are really into drinking, and some of it they don't really understand why? But do you think that's one of the reasons why?
It is partly that. We tend to put on a mask. We don't want people to see what we are struggling with. And then we put on this mask and end up doing maladaptive things. And when the drink is gone, when I'm by myself in the house now, I'm all like slumped back again. But yesterday I was with you. You have not noticed that I'm struggling because we're having fun. But I've not addressed the issue. Why am I drinking today? Why am I not enjoying or incorporating the people, the supports that I have around me? I'm not telling them what's really going on, because we tend to shut down.
Let's talk about that, not incorporating other people. What you've worked with male, female, and different aspects of life. What is the thing with men not really wanting to talk out? What is maybe something you can point out that maybe can help someone out there? What is the main reason why men don't talk out?
We can look at, I would like to maybe address it in two different parts. In general, and if we can look at it as Africans. In general, mental health has just got this stigma. You're sort of like shunned in society. It's still quite a taboo to say, I'm suffering from a mental health issue, even to the white society. Now, if you bring it to our African society, we have grown up as such. We have grown up to be tough. We have grown up to think that we are so resilient. The mind can only take so much. If you overload, look at your brain as a computer chip. If a virus goes in there, you need to reset. But us as African men, we soldier on. We do not then seek that antivirus to put into our brains to say, look, I need to calm down here. I need to either talk to someone or I need a reset. As African men, we are so masculine. We think that we can, it's showing weakness if we then go on to say, a simple thing, I'm struggling here. My brain is not functioning properly. I'm having weird thoughts, or I am so stressed or I'm so depressed, I can't even get out of bed. We then feel we are weakening ourselves. So what do? Like I say, we go into that mode where we then use sort of like maladaptive coping strategies.
And maybe talk about cultural background. Does that have a big, because we might think, being African, but we are also looking at where we're coming from in the cultural aspect. Do you think that actually plays a major role in terms of not speaking out?
It does play a really huge. Thank you very much for bringing that point. It does play a major role. Culturally, it's one of those things that you don't want to bring shame to your family or your loved ones or parents. So culturally, we've always looked at mental health as either you've been bewitched, things like that, or evil spirits. We bring in religion as well. Spiritually, there's something wrong. So we all grew up in that culture, and we've all seen it's there. It's things that sometimes you cannot explain. And for Africans, we have seen so much of that, where people believe in all different beliefs. Things out there, spirits, witchcraft, and then not knowing. Hang on. If I give you an example, there's this man that we used to see when I was growing up back home in Africa. When I think of it now, I actually think, hang on, this guy here had a serious mental health problem, and nobody really paid attention to it because we just shunned him. We just say, he's crazy. He was bewitched. He's lost his mind. But he could have had the help that he needed, and he would have been okay. He would have managed to have a meaningful life, but he was in the streets. So I think that mentality, we bring it here as well, that we don't then seek help thinking, you're either going to be castigated on it, or you have been bewitched, or you're weak, or you need. I'm religious. Prayer helps. I know. I believe in God. You need prayer, but sometimes God has given us that.
We have professionals.
The professionals to deal with it. That's why they're there. God will not shun you to go to.
Now let's talk about maybe practical aspects or mechanisms that men can start maybe try and talk out. Because I think the first stage of everything is being able to speak it out.
Yeah.
So what maybe as men, maybe we're just having conversation. What can we, how can we allow our men to talk? How can we facilitate as a society, as a community, as professionals? How can we help men open up and talk?
I think there needs to be more education, in my view. There's this thing called cultural competence. Is whereby we have the professionals who are aware of the cultural needs and cultural needs of our society. But it's a huge thing whereby you have that professional who can sit down with someone and be able to manage to get them to open up and talk about what they're going through. Because sometimes if you go and talk to somebody who doesn't understand your culture, it then makes you feel, you're going to feel worse. So there needs to be that cultural awareness, a place where we as African men can, or I shouldn't just say African men, really, anyone from a different cultural background Like if we are here in Australia, the First Nations people, if you look at them, they're still struggling on how to address mental health in their society, because they still need to understand the First Nations people. So it makes it then difficult for us Africans coming into another society where they are trying also to deal with other cultures that they don't even understand.
Mix.
So there's a mix there. So that's partly. So how do we as men open up? Generally, we've got so much support as an African society. Me growing up, if I see, do you know how we used to grow up and you've got aunties, everyone is your auntie, everyone is your uncle, everyone, we are all mixed. Reaching out to anyone you trust and just saying, look, I've lost someone, if it's grief, and I'm struggling to cope. Or I lost my job, I'm struggling financially. There's lots of help, us as a society, getting together and trying to help each other. But sometimes when people do that, is us in the society, we then talk, he wants to borrow money from me. But financial stress can cause you to have serious mental health issues. Grief can cause you to, just trying to talk to somebody. And I think there needs to be more support amongst us to start off with before we try and reach out to the broader society and start asking help from the government and so forth. But there are places where you can go to and seek help. Certain places here, because I'm still new here in Australia, but if you look at the background in the UK, you had places like Men's Shed or something like that where men can go and share and just talk. Men's group, things like that. But talking about your mental health is a very, very difficult subject to approach.
Let's talk about those men shed, and because there's one here part of it's a men forum Kenya community, and I'm sure other communities have their own men, men forums, men cave, all those groups. What messages do you have for that? Because sometimes someone might try and share something, and then how it's perceived or how it's received. So talk about the receiving now, because now that's where the challenge comes in. Because sometimes I fear if I come and say something to you, or I open up and say, I lost my job, I can't even raise, my rent. For a man, it might seem as weakness, but maybe I'm struggling to find another job. But how should we receive it, and how should we now try and navigate and create those safe environments for people to feel free to open up and share?
That's a very, very difficult, very, very difficult to actually get. Because sometimes, like you say, just getting to open up and telling someone your issues. As men, we want to be tough. We want to be seen as providers. That's what we are built for.
Yeah.
But when we struggle now, finding that person is very difficult. But knowing, like groups like the Men's Shed, the Men Cave, like you're saying, getting to know somebody that you can confide in, someone that you can trust, and just talking, just saying it, you're not asking for help. As a way, you're talking, you're relieving yourself. And then us as the receiver now, we need to have that understanding. That is where, for me, everything boils down to education, education, education. So there needs to be more talk about mental health when we have these groups and not run away from the subject. Even if we are not struggling mentally, but you realize that when you bring the subject up and you're having discussions, someone might actually realize that, hey, hang on, I think I have a problem here. I need to talk to someone. But yeah, as those groups, there needs to be more discussions in those groups as far as mental health is concerned.
Yeah.
It's pointless talking about football, Man United won yesterday, and all that without actually addressing the main issue. You know, very important subjects.
Yes.
You know, you bring them up, and it takes someone brave to say, "Hey guys, let's talk about mental health today." You know, I've seen so and so, they struggle with this, that, and then the discussion opens up to the whole forum, and people start. You see, people start sharing.
That's another way of professionals within the groups to see that there's someone, and then you can
pick
call
up
them and pick up and follow up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now professional help and any other forms of help that men can go to, because that was partly community and society. And what other is it because for men the other struggle is going to a therapist or a psychologist, or you know, what other how is it, does it make you less of a man? Let's just start from there.
It shouldn't.
Or go to talk to someone else.
Yeah.
Because for women it's easier, man. I hear women go to therapy and it's like cup of tea. It's like having a coffee and something. But for men, before you go to therapy, it's either your wife has dragged you there, or a court order, or the community has hold you back and hey, we need to go. But how can we normalize going to? Is it okay to go for therapy? Is it okay?
Yes, it's a very important. It's very, very important that we realize that most therapy, especially talking therapies, prevent very serious mental health issues when we do attend those therapy. But the best place to start, if you don't want to go to therapy as a first line, your GP. You go to your GP and you're talking and you tell them what's going on. Start getting referrals from your GP. They know. They're very well seasoned professionals, especially the practitioners in this first world country. They'll pick up on things. Oh, hang on. I think you need to be seeing a therapist. Yeah. If you don't want to tell people, it's private, it's confidential. You don't have to tell the whole world you're seeing a therapist. It's between you. Everything is confidential. And what you talk about there is kept confidential. So you've got that peace of mind that, you know, it's not going to be the talk of town. You need to have that private space. And for men out there, it is there. The private space is there, and confidential, and you can, men don't cry, you can cry. Like all these things. You need to normalize it. Yeah. But unfortunately, sometimes, as people from a ethnic or background, we don't tend to have the same privileges as the white society. It's something that's out there. It's there. So when we go to our GPs, sometimes we don't get those referrals as compared to our counterpart, the white men. They will definitely be like, oh, or antidepressant medications, you know, because it's normal. It's the norm for that in their culture. But for us, sometimes that's where the cultural competence, like I was talking about, needs to come in, a better understanding of our culture. We've been through a lot as African men and as an African society. We need to remember that we are immigrants migrating from somewhere to a new place is a lot of stress in itself. And you know, we need to have that forum where we can talk about these things. How do we find our social connections as, you know, as a as a people? How are we going to find that social connection ourselves? Sometimes, Australia is big. Zimbabweans there, Kenyans there,
South Sudanese, South
you know.
Africans.
But if we have that social networking group where we can all meet as immigrants, as and having those sort of like discussions, I'm very happy that you talked about the men cave. You guys go to? Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about it.
Within the professional setup, I like the way you say the GP and just get out there. If you don't want your matters to be within the community circle, just get out there. There's professional help. They're gonna handle you well, and they're gonna refer you to more help. And it's for your benefit. So talk about some of the stigmas maybe within ethnical communities and barriers that are actually affecting more men, and how can we as a society or men ourselves break it? And maybe something I like the way you say be brave enough. That's one of breaking these barriers. But what are some of the barriers you've seen maybe as a cultural ethnic background man, not only a mental health professional, from your own perspective? What are some of the barriers that are actually hindering us as men to talk out, and how can we break such stigmas and barriers as well?
It's quite
is it toxic?
Toxic. it's quite toxic. because just men being men, African men. I'm telling you, we are so hardened, and I envy that sort of resilience. So, but however, like I talked about, there's a breaking point. That's when we get. If you look at it, the suicide rates in us African men is very high. I think in this year alone, I know I've had a few cases where people have taken their own lives over issues of marital status, relationship breakdown, financial issues, and people take their own life. But if that person had reached out, if that person had talked about what's going on, and us as well, looking out for a brother. Oh, I haven't seen my friend here for 2 weeks. Let me just check on him. Hey, how are you going? Are you okay? Sometimes just that, are you okay? People tend to like asking each other and looking out for each other. But as men, it's quite as African men, it's quite a huge jump for someone to take to eventually start talking about their own issues.
Yeah.
And you get people ending up taking their own life. It's quite sad, really. But the help is out there. And just need to reach out. Yeah. Don't isolate yourself. We tend to do that a lot. We isolate our problems. It's interesting because as a mental health professional, I've talked a lot you do a lot of talking. If I'm talking to somebody of not an ethnic background, I quickly get stuff out of them. But if I'm talking to African men, especially the field I'm in offending, they've done, and you're trying to understand why they committed that crime. It takes a lot to bring it out. But then you realize, oh, you're from Sierra Leone or something like that, or you are from a war-torn country. You've suffered a lot of trauma and you didn't address it. You've migrated here, and that trauma has affected how you act in society. Some of the crimes are very minor crimes, but they're not acceptable in society. But when you're talking to the African brother, it takes a lot to bring it out. What's going on? But when you get to the bottom of it, you realize, no, this person has been traumatized all their life. They've seen horrendous things in their life that they've just put at the back of their head. But as a child, if you notice someone dying or war and all these things, they affect your mental health. And you need to just reach out and talk about it. But unfortunately, we don't. We don't.
I like the aspect you're bringing as we're trying to wind up. Because as at our workplaces, there's something we call debrief. Because some people think speaking out is just normally, therapist or talking to a friend, but also at our workplaces, if something really bad happened or someone got injuries and you were in an accident or stuff, there's something they call debrief. They have to debrief you.
Yeah.
So I think we need to change how we're telling people, if something happens to you, because over time, as you're saying, then the trauma piles up and then you end up doing stuff that you don't even recognize. Because something happened, you didn't debrief. So I think the message out there is if something happens that actually has really caused you to be shocked, it has shocked your system, it's good to debrief and really bring it out. I think that's the message I'm taking from, and maybe any other message you have for our men today as we try and wind up. Any message, any advice, the floor is yours.
Talk. There is nothing, you lose nothing. Talk. Find someone to tell your problem. Talk. And us as receivers, listen. See things, we need to see it and be able to help. There's nothing wrong. Like I said, are you okay? Are you okay? My brother, are you okay? You seem to be drinking too much these days, my brother. What's going on? What's happening? Is this something? Talk to me. Hey, talk. If we pick out something, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. If they don't want to talk, ask again tomorrow. Hey, 2 days in a row, my bro, you're still drinking. Yeah. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. You drunk already. What's going on? Yeah. Is everything okay at home? How are the kids? How's the missus? Then you pick out someone with what missus? Okay. Wait a minute, my brother. What's happening there? Yeah. Or they would have lost someone. How's your kids? Maybe they've lost a kid, but they haven't told anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, I've lost my. Oh, okay. That's why. So sorry, my bro. Let's talk about this. But we don't. Sometimes we just keep things, especially when it comes to finances and relationship. Those are the main culprits. They put a lot of stress on men. We need to talk about it. I'm struggling financially. Talk about it. My relationship is breaking down. Talk about it. But we don't.
Yes, it doesn't make you less of a man.
It doesn't make you less of a man. Yeah.
That's the message down there, bottom line today. Talk about it. Find someone. Talk about it. You GP anyone within the community. It's okay. It's okay. It's better you look a fool, but you actually emptied your issues. Yeah. You look a fool, but you're actually living longer. So that's the message.
That's the best.
I want to say thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Pressing this chair at the Connect, and we want to say thank you to all our viewers for watching. And if you need more of this, if you need tangible, anything that you need, write down in the comment section, and we're gonna endeavor to bring this. And if you are a professional out there, you'd like us to air anything, we welcome you to send us a DM on our Instagram, on our socials, and we're gonna reach out and we're trying to make this conversation happen, because it's a conversation that has been long coming, and we need to start the conversation so that our men, our women, and everybody can be safe out there. So stay safe, open up, talk. It doesn't make you less of a man. Yeah, it doesn't make you less of a man.